Hey everybody, welcome to the Tesla Life, episode 18 for August 23rd, 2017. My name is Russell Frost. I have the good fortune to be your host this week, but even better fortune to be joined by some of my favorite panelists and our special guest this week, who I'll introduce right now. You've seen him before. He has been on What Drives Us several times with some of his, he's developed an amazing charging identification protocol. Is that the best way to describe that, Matt?
Language. a simple language. Yeah.
A simple way to identify what car goes with what charger. And let me just introduce him, then he can talk about it. His name is Matthew Teskey.
Hello. Yeah. And so, yeah, thanks for the time, guys. I'm happy to be joining you on the podcast. Yeah. And as for ChargeWay, that's one of the things I've worked on recently for EVs, an easier way to explain the various physical plugs that are on the market today, and also the various levels and how they work. I've actually got a very fun story about that at some point we can touch on sometime, maybe today, as to how it really is necessary. And it's a personal story for me. So, but aside from that, yeah, most of the work I do is obviously related to getting EVs to be more easily understood and marketed to the general public. So
there we go, and that's Matt. The other guys you recognize, and unlike Matt and I, we don't get lower thirds that identify us. I have to adjust my camera here. We're just anonymous faces on.
No, we're just people here.
Some dude who rolled up, and just some hobos who were invited to come by the campfire. At the center of the campfire, though, is my wingman in this show, our man in Canada, Mr. Mark Coughlin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Glad to be back after a missed week. So, looking forward to some more Tesla information.
We missed you a lot last week, man.
Yeah, sure you did.
Yeah, no. I mean, the show probably is going to make a lot more sense this week. At least that'll be the email that I get.
Yeah, that's right. It
feels a lot better with that Mark guy on. And speaking of better when he's on, I'll admit it here in public. The show is always better with our friend, Dr. Evan Fusco.
Hey, everybody. How y'all doing today?
Note carefully, let's put this on the screen. Note carefully that URL, if you're going to order a Tesla Model 3, you need to use that URL, okay? That way, yeah, and it's hard to...
You got it!
There, so that Evan can score lots of cool Tesla swag. Okay?
Yeah, when we do shout-outs later, I'll talk about why that's on there again today.
There you go. Awesome. So we're going to start off the show today with Matt. Matt managed to... I don't even want to say he stepped in it because I don't think he did anything wrong. But Matt got himself into a situation, and I'm going to turn it over to Matt.
Yeah, well, yeah, essentially, obviously since Model 3 launched, there's been a lot of talk in the media, and one of the things I kept reading in some of the media coverage and from a lot of, obviously, Tesla fans is that they felt that this is the moment for electric vehicles, and they kept referencing Model 3 as essentially, and I saw it numerous times, it was being called the iPhone of cars, and this was the iPhone car moment, and I kept looking at everything, and I kind of just said, I just don't think so. I think it's a great car, but I don't think there's a sound way to rationally get to that conclusion. I think there's a ton of things to be excited about for how EVs have progressed in recent years, and I think Model 3 is the culmination of Musk's secret plan, which was not so secret because he put it out for the world to read. But I just wasn't seeing the same transformative nature of what the Model 3 is compared to how the iPhone transformed communication. And so I positioned that based on reading the Guardian article that you just showed the link to. And again, my 2 cents on it was, it's still, at the end of the day, it's still physically a car. And other than being electrified and having a lot of range, from a competitive perspective, it isn't crushing to what's out there as an option. Like if you were to look at an A4 or a 3 Series or a C-Class, I think that there's still a lot of, if you look at the reasons why people buy a car, and I think Model 3 is great, but my position on it was it just simply isn't providing that tangible change that an iPhone did. If you had a flip phone or an old Nokia, and the day you held an iPhone, from a tactile perspective, it was a new type of interface with communication. It brought so many things together: phone, internet, email, navigation, you name it. And Model 3 is still just a car that plugs in and runs on electricity. It's beautiful, and it has some options to be different down the line. But I just think we're getting ahead of ourselves. And because of the marketing work I'm doing for electrics and trying to get the general public to really see EVs as the option that is better, I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, because then it gives an excuse and a reason for people to say, you know, you told me this thing was like the iPhone of cars, but frankly, it doesn't go as far as my Beamer. It costs the same, and I have to drive it still. I just like a driver's car, and to me, that's the BMW, or whatever reason they can conjure up. Whereas with an iPhone, there's really not a lot of room for people to say why their flip phone is better. And so I just wasn't seeing the parallels. And so I put my opinion out there and proceeded to get completely pummeled by people that love Tesla. So, and I'm more than willing to engage in the conversation, because I think it's an important conversation to have, because we all that are EV adopters and early advocates we really want to see these things succeed. But I think we need to have a moment of just kind of taking a deep breath and saying, okay, it might be, what I kept finally saying to people was, be excited about the product, but don't overhype the promise. What the car is today, and even what it still will be for a couple of years, is just simply not in the same ballpark as saying, pull out your flip phone next to your iPhone and it's just going to change your world that way. It's just, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah. So as much as I love to pummel you, I can't really disagree with you too much, at least on this initial iteration of Model 3 that we're seeing now. You know, like I quickly read through your article, and I think there's several points that probably deserve to be brought up, such as that presentation that launched was a bit of a joke, and like
it was an employee appreciation night.
We all were left like, wait, what size battery? How fast? What?
Is he leaving the stage?
Did he need to go take a bathroom break? Where did he go?
I was on vacation and I watched your guys' podcast while doing the live feed on it, and literally that's what you guys did when the moment goes, okay, bye, and all of you went,
what?
Like, you guys are like looking under your computers, like, where is he hiding? You know, and I thought, yeah, that was not what we wanted to see. Yeah.
Right. And you know, you mentioned the Osborne effect, and I have to believe that he is just so underselling this, because he knows with that 500,000 orders already, the math does not work out for being able to deliver those cars in anything resembling a timely fashion, even if ramping of production goes perfectly on plan.
Right.
And there are no issues with getting the products from their suppliers, and there are no recalls of any of the parts that they're using. It's still going to be 2 to 3 years before they meet current order reservations. So you've got to believe that's what a lot of that was. And to that end, I think I can agree with you. I think where I might take a little issue, and probably where others did, is I think, you know, when you get in it in a Tesla, it is a different experience than like comparing the flip phone to the iPhone. And maybe when you just sit here and look at the car and you look at the display and you look at the pictures online, you don't quite appreciate that as much as once you get in it and you drive it and you've got this completely different interface and this completely different driving experience. And to that end, I think the iPhone comparison has some semblance of validity. But yeah, look, I'm not gonna beat you up on that too much. I think there's some validity to your comments, and part of that's probably intentional, and part of it's probably truth, and part of it's probably wrong.
Well, and I think it's one of the things you mentioned was driving experience. I think that phrase to me is important in the sense that at the end of the day is still what you're doing inside the car. I mean, what level 2 autonomy currently brings with Autopilot, it's definitely better than what everybody else has in the market currently. But I keep looking at the idea and reality of, okay, say for example, BMW comes up with a very strong Autopilot competitor, or Nissan does with their next iteration of the Leaf. And if you do that, you then all of a sudden find yourself in that blended world of, okay, so then those are kind of all in the same vein of autonomy. So what is the next benefit? How far can I go? How fast can I refuel it? You know, things of that nature.
Yeah, but you know, it's and I guess I go back to, if we're going to do metaphors, you know, when digital cameras first started to come out, man, I was the grumpiest anti-digital. They'll never be able to meet the resolution of film, and these are a flash in the pan, and this is, you know, I was an idiot, right? I mean,
well, I'm not saying that about EVs. I think they are going to change things.
No, but I think that, yeah, and I think that's the thing. You then I got one in my hand, and even a relatively early iteration, I went, whoa, this is cool. Look at all these pictures I can take all at once and just throw away the ones that don't work and not have to process film. And I think, you know, Autopilot or not, even if BMW came out with the exact same product, I think there's still something about an EV driving experience that is different. And will it appeal to everybody? No. But will it appeal to a lot of people? Yeah, man, I think it will. That quiet acceleration, that smooth, quick, immediate response. Those are things that you don't get out of any petrol vehicle, and so there is something different. And then you just add the beautiful styling and things that the bolt and the leaf just look like ugly ducklings next to it. So
no, the Tesla does have a cachet for brand and style without a question. I mean, people equate Tesla to a luxury type item now, and they really do, and that's good, I think. And they do have a beautiful product. When it comes to what does a car provide you for utility, I'm still just like, man, I just don't see it. It's at the end of the day, you physically get in. It's got 4 wheels, 4 doors, a steering wheel, pedals. It's got a place where you change your climate controls and stereo and everything else. And I get the beauty of what a gigantic screen does for people, even in the Model S and X. But again, and I'm also based not just my opinion, but even I've sat and talked to people at major automotive events, ride and drives for EVs, and they still, even with Teslas there or not, they'll say, yeah, it's neat. It's kind of, but the response from the general public almost gets a sense of like, it's almost gimmicky to them. They don't genuinely understand, like, okay, but if I still have to physically drive the thing, why is this going to replace the car I currently have? I don't get it. And I've heard that too many times to just give Model 3 this blanketed pass to say it's the second coming of cars. I kept thinking, okay, why did people go from horses to the Model T? And looking at the parameters of why they did it, I kept looking at that saying, how does Model 3 transition in the same way from what a current luxury entry-level sedan offers? And it just, those two things don't match up of saying it's as transformative. And so now if autonomy becomes really what it is, so that second link I shared with you, Russell, from LinkedIn, if truly the business model that the one engineer from TMC pointed out, which is that you look at what they're doing with autonomy, you look at how they're using a card and not a key fob to get you in, very car sharing related, and you look at the idea that they're going to put an identity around you from a car sharing perspective, then if Model 3 turns into a second way of having income and they can monitor people inside the car with a consumer facing camera, I think, yeah, then all of a sudden you start getting that realm of, I own this very cool product, I like it a lot, and I can actually make money on it, and people never even touch the steering wheel. Then you're getting into that vein of, okay, yeah, that's transformative, but that's not what the Model 3 is today. It's the promise of what it could be, not the product of what it is today. So that's where I try to balance that conversation out.
I think that the analogy has been made just because you're right. There's been a lot of hype. There's been a ton of hype, but what I see is that people are excited about it, and there was an excitement around the iPhone. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just as simple as that. It is something that's new. It is something that's been talked about for a time. We have people that are used to the Teslas, like the previous models. There's been excitement from that, and now it's the promise of a cheaper or more affordable car from that manufacturer that is exciting people's imagination, that this is the next step. It is now at a level that more people could afford, and I think that's kind of what is going on here. Is that's why the comparison is there. It's because of the hype. It's because of people knowing somewhat about it, and now it is opening to a larger audience.
I think
go ahead, Evan. Go ahead.
I was saying, I think if you're going to compare it to an iPhone, what I'd say is, the Tesla, the Roadster was the first gen iPhone. The Model S was the second gen. Model X was the third gen, and then this is a new half price iPhone that's been released, so more people can access it and that can't pay $800 for an iPhone. This isn't the first gen iPhone coming out with a Model 3, and I'm not actually sure where that comparison came from. I don't think the people I frequent think of it that way, because
I have a hard time subscribing to that, because the model, like iPhone by nature to be a game-changing product in the industry that it served, which is communication, it was accessible in a very real way to change people's world and experience with communication the day it came out. And you didn't have to wait 2 years to get it. You at the most waited 2 weeks.
And that, dear friends, is the key point, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's accessibility.
That's the biggest difference. It's not the car, it's not the software or the hardware that's the difference. It was Apple's ability to dump millions of those things into stores, into America on one day, and change a lot of opinions. I think this Model 3 would be nearly as transformative if Tesla had the ability to put 10 of these in every dealer, in a dealer in every major city in the United States.
It would have a much greater effect, without doubt. Yeah.
Huge effect. Huge effect. But the idea that they're going to kind of, this is not running down Tesla at all, but the idea that they're ramping up production, they're coming out in very small numbers and very regionally, holds that transformative effect back. But this is potentially a huge product. But right now it's Tesla's production capability that I think holds it back. It's all the other things you mentioned are huge. And
Right.
if they come true, will be another step in that evolution.
Well, and that's what I referenced with respect to, you know, what's going on with,
But
go ahead. Oh, so Russell, one of the things I mentioned in the follow-up article that was posted by, again, that one engineer that was on TMC, is he basically said, he's like, look, I'm putting pieces together for what I think could be a transformative discussion for what this could offer to people that could never own it, but just in fact engage with it. I think that's neat. And so that's what I said. I said, the reality of it is if they're underselling and anti-selling, and Evan, as you pointed out, they're trying to get people to buy Model S immediately, because reality speaking, they can hand those off to people within, 4 to 8 weeks. That is a huge, they know they're making money on it, I think, but they really can at least get people to buy a product today as opposed to $1,000 reservation. And I thought, okay, that explains a lot of what the launch was, because it really was. I don't blame Elon and Tesla for being willing to say we're going to give a high five to our employees, because damn it, they helped make this happen. They deserved that evening, with no question. But as you guys had the response to it, as many did, which was, what just happened? Why did he leave the stage already? Because it was more of a PR move, and they are doing a lot of PR chess right now. And I think we should just hold off on what that is, based on even what Russell just explained. So I thought, yeah, reality being, it is hard to make cars. It really is. And he joked about it, and that's fine. But that tells me that we aren't at that iPhone moment. We are at the promise of what this could be. And so therefore, and this gets back to me also looking at the EV industry as a whole, thinking it can't just be about Tesla, but Tesla is the first brand that comes to people's mind oftentimes when they have heard about electric cars. So by default, they do represent the industry in a big way. So EVs don't have the luxury of this hype and then overpromise, underdeliver, because then someone can just find an excuse to keep driving what they've always have. And for me, that makes it a tough thing to just get behind, saying, no, it's like an iPhone, because it's harder to sell. You can't sell a hype. You got to be able to sell them on today. What does this product give me today? And if, you get to wait 2 years when you give them $1,000, that's not iPhone. It's just not. So.
Yeah, my comment isn't anything about the product itself. Isn't about
right.
Model 3. I think it's just the limited availability holds it back from having that transformative effect.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's a big part of the conversation too, is what is the customer experience and the end game of what we're handing to the customer that's going to help them say, this changed my world. And that, I actually found a very great clip from Steve Jobs back at the Worldwide Developers Conference in 1997 when he came back to Apple, and one of the engineers asked him that and said, what have you been doing? Why are you here already changing all this stuff? And his response to the engineer was, look, I've learned that we can either A, get all of our engineers in a room and say, what's this cool new thing we can come up with, design and build it, and then when we get done with it, all of a sudden have to figure out how to market it. That's a bad decision, because they may need or want it. In this instance, and then he said, we have to start with the customer experience first and move backwards from that to find out what we're building. And that was 10 years before the iPhone. I think that process is a very smart way of looking at it. And I think Tesla does have that in their ecosystem and how they approach producing products. But Evan, as you pointed out, that launch event wasn't as much a launch event as it was like, here's the thing, and they're going to write about it.
We did what we said we we're going to do. We're delivering them. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, kind of. And again, leaving everybody hanging like that, I think, is what really caused me to say, uh-oh, I don't think this is what people think it is.
Yeah.
So
what was the most of the hate that you got? Did we cover it?
Yeah, probably. I think most people just. Oh, go ahead, Russell.
Did anyone? No. I just did you get anything that was entertaining? That's all.
Oh, plenty. I mean, basically, I was, like, what's your address, man? I'll come tell you what game changing is. But here's the thing: is I'm a.
What, you're saying the internet's full of hotheads? Is that what you're saying?
Now wait, we're all very even keeled on the internet. No, I expected to get some people to say, hey, what are you talking about? But what I truly realized, and this is what I've told a lot of people in a lot of my meetings recently with even stakeholders, is we need to ask ourselves what we're trying to sell and market. Is it a product or an ideology? Because EVs, by nature, have brought in a certain type of person to say, I believe in technology. I have aspirations to do things that are good for the environment. I want to do things because I like technology, etc. But I can't sell everybody on wanting to care about those things. And so I think a lot of people get hot and heavy on their brand that they believe in, which Tesla represents a ton of that. Look at their mission statement alone. So that is why they have passionate fans and passionate owners. But then I have to just take a step back and say, but what are we selling then? Is it your belief system, or is it this product that is actually going to transform people? Because I've learned again, we can get back on advertising and like the polar bear hugging the Nissan owner. That is only speaking to this little wedge of the marketplace. And in the same way, I think we run a risk of completely alienating the general public by saying, well, you should think like me. And it's like, a lot of people are going to say, I got to get from point A to point B. I got to like it, make it easy for me. And Tesla does do some of those things, but I think we're getting way ahead of the product today with getting excited about what the promise is. And I get nervous that the general public is going to give them an excuse and a reason to say, you guys are still full of crap. This is not what I thought it would be. And I don't want to do that to our industry.
See, but Toyota went through a lot of these growing pains with Prius.
Sure.
Same kind of deal.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not equated to the iPhone. Maybe this is equated to a iPod Touch.
Someone told me they're like, this is more like the Palm Pilot, and I was like, I don't know about that.
Although I love my Palm Pilot back in the day. Thank you very much.
I think I keep telling people that if you look at how consumerism works, especially here in the States, it always oftentimes comes down to instant gratification and what does it do for me today. And so trying to sell someone on the benefits of why an EV is so great because their maintenance is going to be reduced by 90%, which is true, but that's over a period of 5 years. No one gives a damn if they have to wait 18 months to 24 months about this benefit they get. They want to know today, what does this do for me? And that's what the iPhone did for them in comparison to a flip phone or even a BlackBerry. And the Model 3 just doesn't yet provide that tactile response. So,
wait, it does.
On the touchscreen?
You have to drive. No, but they have to drive the damn thing. Okay.
There's some truth in that.
Anybody in this panel think that if you put one of these cars in every car dealership again in America, Chevy, whatever, and said 35 grand, how much are you going to spend? You want this or this, and go drive this, that you wouldn't sell a shitload of Teslas?
Oh, the
problem is they can't put them in every dealership because they don't want to sell them like that.
Of course. No, I understand that. I'm just, what I'm saying though is it's the ubiquity of the product. I think it was, there's no question the iPhone was out of the door a huge game changer. But don't ignore that sort of second order effect of that first wave of iPhones getting out into people's hands and people seeing others with them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a pretentious iPhone owner. He's a bastard. And then going, holy shit, I want that.
Well, yeah, Tesla is status in the same way having an iPhone is status. No doubt.
But it also delivers on the promise of being a really cool car, fun to drive, and not as limiting as like an 80-mile range EV.
True, but then we get back to the other hurdles that the Model 3 and other EVs still have, which is there are still issues of 300 miles range is badass for someone who's owned all EVs that have anywhere from 60 to more than that. I'm psyched about that. But then someone who's just wants a car that's cool that works for them might not be sold on that thing and that selling point, and that's where I go. This is still not the transformative part of the conversation. So
keep in mind market share. iPhone's still not that big. They still there's a buttload more Android devices out there than there are iPhones. Apple just happens to make all the money.
Android also had to play catch up to some extent too, which is interesting. If you look at that model for smartphones, will the auto industry do that on some level? I mean, I'm not seeing it yet because there's too many factors that they ignore, which is everything from infrastructure to true fast charging to you name it. And so, yeah, I think, again, don't get me wrong, I'm excited about Model 3. I am. I don't want to get tarred and feathered every time I walk onto the internet. But it's a matter of just trying to keep the conversation honest because it's just becoming one of those things where I think that we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
All right. So as soon as you send me your address, we can wrap this segment up.
Go get him, Evan. Go get him.
Hey, honestly, Evan, I will totally send that to you. I mean,
that was a nice fade. Somebody who appreciates good camera work, Matt. That was well. Let's stop picking on Matt for just a minute, and let's pick on some legislators in Michigan. Fred Lambert at Electric reported that the Tesla versus Michigan lawsuit continues, and in fact, the U.S. Magistrate Judge Ellen Carmody actually has continued to has validated, I guess, the subpoena from 2 state legislators who were trying to squash the subpoena and see their communications. Why is this important? Well, one of the people is the person who introduced this amendment. This is State Senator Joe Kuhn, who his wife, Marcia Kuhn, just happens to be a lobbyist for car dealerships in Michigan.
What are the odds?
What are the odds? What are the odds?
Wow. That's so obvious.
And then the other state representative, Jason Shepard, actually claimed in public, and we have to question Representative Shepard's intelligence at this point, actually claimed that the reason for the ban is that Michigan auto dealers and manufacturers just don't want Tesla in Michigan.
And he actually get that out of his mouth to be recorded.
And I quote, Michigan auto dealers and manufacturers don't want Tesla in Michigan. Thank you, State Representative Jason Shepard.
Wow.
So they are going to be pulling communications from them. Just the lawyers will be allowed to see them. They won't be made public, which is a damn shame.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that hum in the background you hear, those are shredders running.
Yeah.
24/7.
Yeah. Somewhere like somebody's probably getting Aaron Brockovich on the phone. They're like, we got a case for you, you know.
How do we get out of this crap?
Yeah.
It's sad, but I understand it. I understand. I don't agree with it.
It's the death rattle of an industry in a lot of ways, and it's going to be. I hate to see all the pushback constantly, but the fact that there's more moments that are going to happen like this, where I think the transparency, and again, bluntly, when they're saying things verbatim like that, and you just go, well, I guess we don't have to ask that question again, right, guys? I mean, no speculation.
It's on the record.
Yeah, right. You know, and then you have to ask. So now they're just being that honest about it. Now what? You know, so.
In a way, I appreciate Representative Shepard's openness, even if it is damn stupid. Well, speaking of something not damn stupid, we talked a little bit about this last week or week before, and I think I tossed out a theory, and it seems like Mark's next story might have validated that theory.
Yeah, just an update to the story about the Aero Wheels on the Tesla Model 3. The 18-inch, there happened to be a story in Electric about how an engineer was met at one of the superchargers, and an interested fan person had asked questions about the Aero Wheels themselves and what their purpose was. And apparently this engineer, who claimed to be the VP of engineering at Tesla,
I see it a lot too,
indicated that that this is a possible mileage gain of 10% on the car, which is quite a large figure to be quoted. So kind of interesting that this number was quoted, whereas in the past numbers more like 2 or 3% have been quoted. 1%. 10% is an alarming high figure. And again, this is unsubstantiated. We have no actual person's name here. All we have is that this person was approached at a supercharger in Monterey.
So I have an addendum to this. One of our own viewers and listeners, 00101, and by the way, cheers for the message, says that they had to put, now not arguing about how much, I think 10% is crazy high, but they had to put this on there. They had to put the plastic covers on because otherwise the EPA doesn't consider them standard equipment. It's optional equipment. So your EPA rating is only with a standard equipment. That's why these come slapped in the car, because they do gain some percentage. Now, again, I
10% is bold.
10% is crazy.
Yeah.
I just don't see how it could be 10%. I recall Toyota, and again, forgive me for repeating what I said last week or week before, but said 1 or 2% was a difference in their plastic wheel covers. Now, maybe these are 2 or 3 or something, and for an EPA test, you're going to do everything you can to max it out. That makes sense.
Yeah. And then it's kind of interesting that when the original Model S came out, it had the wheel covers as well, which I'm sharing here as a screenshot on the screen. But they went away quickly because people didn't want them.
Yeah. Well, you're buying an expensive car, and that doesn't look expensive.
Yeah, so that was an optional rim that you could get initially, and it cost more, believe it or not.
Really? It cost more? Okay. So maybe that's part of the reason it went away. But the other part is probably looks. And really, the community out there are feeling, by far the same way about the Aero Wheels. It's not a look that people are after.
Yeah, if I end up with a Model 3 with those rims, those Aero Wheels are staying off except for cross-country trips when I know I'm going to need the range. I mean, those are heinous.
Yeah, if it is indeed a 10%, like that is substantial. I could see people slapping them on for long distances. But
right, and you're only going to see that 10% on a nice, steady, long
highway.
Right, where aerodynamics really make a huge difference. Stop and go traffic in the city, that's going to make absolutely no impact at all.
Yeah, so I guess the story will continue, and we'll see if these numbers hold true or if they may be inflated.
There you go. Well, do we have another Tesla technical story this I shouldn't say technical. I guess we're all, we've got lots of technical stuff this week. Oh, Mark, just take it away. Help me, for God's sake.
The next is about Tesla owners. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm skipping. The battery arms race is the next story. Yeah. So we've got now a situation where other auto manufacturers have started to see the light, apparently, and are starting to understand that this battery factory in Nevada is going to be a huge advantage for Tesla. And in order for them to catch up on the actual price ranges and the production of vehicles, because of shortages now happening in some battery circles, there's a number of manufacturers that are going to have to put in their own gigafactories or the ability to build batteries at a faster pace than they've ever imagined. So the question, and of course the claims are starting where is whether or not, they're true, where a Chinese manufacturer says we're going to build, one with 3 times the capability of the current gigafactory. And we've got others in Germany that are putting a plant. The VW is saying they're going to build their own. Mercedes is talking about what they're going to do. So there are a number of different groups that are starting to realize that that they're going to have to be involved in the battery game in a huge way that they haven't been to this point. And the problem for all of them is that Tesla already has a plant that's built and it's in operation and it's growing. So they are really behind the ball, that they're a number of years behind the ball, that they've now seen the light. So it'll be interesting to see if these new plants start to come online and when they even start construction. Because we all know, based on the gigafactory size, that it took, 2.5 years to get to the point where it was doing anything besides just being a hole in the desert.
Well, and even the size of the gigafactory is multiple times bigger than what Mercedes announced that even they were doing.
Right.
Yeah. So
there's it seems to be some sort of a reckoning out there that people are starting to realize, holy moly, we've dropped the ball on this. We're going to have to get involved in a big way. Otherwise, we're going to get steamrolled and not be able to catch up. And there's been some argument that they already have been steamrolled and they're not going to catch up. But they are at least a few years behind. All of them are. And then when you look at, other announcements that have come just recently, actually one today, which we'll probably talk a little bit more in what drives us, but LG Chem has said they're going to set up a new plant in Michigan to help develop not only batteries but components, because they're out. They're maxed out into the amount that they've sold, and that is the problem that these other manufacturers of EVs are now running into, where the parts suppliers just don't have the parts.
Crazy,
but true.
Indeed. Well, thanks, Mark. Speaking of construction and components and whatnot, I found an interesting little thing on Electrek about the composition of the Model 3 body, how it differs from the S and the X.
Oh, that was a cool article. Yeah.
I just love this little graphic, and I want to show this. This whole, like, me talking about this is just my excuse to show this graphic. Yeah. So this is the composition. Whereas S and X are mainly aluminum, this is the composition of the Model 3. And you'll see there's actually very little aluminum. Most of it's different alloys of steel that make up the Model 3. Yeah. And I think that's fascinating. I'm sorry. I
also think it's impressive based on the fact that it's steel and they're getting the type of range they are getting out of it, which really makes you appreciate the energy density that their new batteries do have. Because it's smaller than S and X, but steel and aluminum by comparison is you see a very strong difference there. I thought that was, again, seeing that visual, I thought was really a great way to tell it, but also really says something about what they've developed underneath that car.
Right. I mean, without knowing the alloys, but generally speaking, you can figure aluminum weighs half of what a component made of steel would have to be of the same strength.
Okay. Yeah.
So
are you getting from this graphic that the blue and red door panels there are overlapped to make one door?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like what they're doing is they're using like a skeleton of what they're calling ultra high strength steel, and then overlaying it with some mild steel, as opposed to, again, aluminum or something else. So
that's for the frame itself. What about all the rest of the skin, the doors, the fenders, the hood? What did it end up saying about that?
They don't say anything, but we have had reports of people that went to the event that brought their own magnets and determined that all the external body panels are aluminum.
Yeah.
Or a good amount of them. I'm sure they didn't have time to go over every surface of the car, but certainly the major components like door panels and hoods and trunks, they were able to test.
I love that you know that, Mark. I had no idea. I could just see people like going, "Yeah, I'm not doing nothing, just rubbing this magnet on this."
That's all I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got this special mood ring on. It's just a ring. That's all it is.
Yeah. Stop touching my car. It's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My hand is completely stuck to your quarter panel right now because apparently it's not
which leads me to a quick detour. There's been pictures of people hugging other people's cars in parking lots. Yeah. So please, people, stay away from other people's cars. Take a picture if you want to, yes, but do not hug somebody else's car.
Right. Yeah. If anybody's going to get tarred and feathered, it should be the person hugging your car. Especially when you're like, do you see the VIN number on that? That's really low. Don't hug that car.
Right. Yeah. I come out and you're humping my car.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, okay, we just jumped the shark on that one because hugging and humping.
I'm sorry, whatever. They both start with it. Okay.
Hugging is a gateway intimate moment with a car.
All of a sudden, there's cocktails, there's romantic mood lighting, and then boom, where's my car?
Yeah.
Like the streetlights were on a minute ago.
Yeah. I thought he was alone. I mean, I thought,
But that is, I saw the photo. I think it was someone who had an ex, and they're like, we just saw this on a road, and they stopped, and she was just like, bang, like on the car. And I thought, you imagine walking back up that. I think most people, again, as Tesla fans and owners, might be like, hey, I get it. But the wrong person might be like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Hugging your car, man. It's like, obviously.
It's quite normal. Yeah.
But now you're going to see sales of magnetic rings go through the roof. Somebody on Etsy is going to be like, I've sold thousands of these things, and they all keep going to the Bay Area for some reason.
For some reason, it. Let's see here. This is worth it. This is a way long trip for not a very funny joke.
Here we go.
For some reason, it makes me think of this image. I don't know if you've seen that before. I'm just saying, back off my Tesla, okay?
Can you imagine that kid the next day?
That was not the photo I was talking about, by the way. But
no.
That's awesome.
But all you know is that dad had the conversation with that kid the next morning and said, from this day forward, just go wash the car before Saturday night. Sorry, Dad. Mom doesn't want to know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got your clothes all dirty. What are you thinking? Was it clothes? Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Yeah.
Oh, Mark, save me from this. Save me.
Last story I have is about Tesla owners now have the ability to escalate issues directly to executives in order to improve communication and action. So this was a story that came out just a couple days ago, and it's interesting to see that this even exists. That they can now, and it's not a clear definition of how it happens,
right?
But there is the ability, apparently, to be able to, if you feel you're not getting action, to take some action yourself and push it or escalate it to a higher level. And I wanted to maybe ask Evan about his opinion on this, and if he's ever seen any evidence of this in what he's done with his two cars.
Evidence of them failing to respond?
Yeah.
No. But I'm not a good example, probably. Yeah, I've had a pretty close relationship with the service departments out here in the Midwest. We're still pretty small and don't have the numbers that they do in California. So when I've had concerns, I am, the sales or the service tech's number is on my phone. Literally, several of them have called me and know me on a first name basis. So I'm not a good example.
So you're flagged in the system, is what you're saying.
That drop down doesn't exist at his IP.
That's right. That's right.
They've taken especially good care of me, and so I'm probably not a great example there. But look, I spent enough time on the forums to know that I am unique in that way, and several people have had issues of not being able to get response. And as this article points out, Tesla has taken they had a pretty strong presence in the forums very early on, because they were, to the point, and some of you may recall from What Drives Us episodes, I on more than one occasion posted, my car is making this funny noise and doing this, and Tesla called me on my phone. All right. Like, I posted this on Tesla Motors Club, and they called me on my phone and said, we're going to send a Ranger down tomorrow. Will you be there? Okay, so that was, early days, very few cars out, very aggressive social media presence, very aggressive tech service. They've got way too many numbers for that. And so that social media presence really diminished dramatically for a long time. And then over the past several months, we've seen them being more responsive in threads, saying, email at this address and we'll get you taken care of. And so a little less direct approach of calling you on your phone, because I don't think they can as easily identify who's who, but there aren't a whole lot of e-Fuscos floating around out there in Tesla world, or there weren't 4.5 years ago. So, this is probably a good step for them to try to step back into that social media presence, though, from what we've seen in the past with Prius and such, is that they start getting bombarded and they can no longer handle the influx, because now everybody knows what their screen name is on Tesla, and they start messaging them continuously, and there's no way they can handle that. So we'll see. I hope it's a good step, but I like the options. I thought that drop down for escalate to an executive is interesting. Hope it's not abused, but it's interesting option.
Well, right, yeah. The abuse part, I think the other thing that's interesting is because of the early owners and such, even someone such as yourself, is what level of patience and leeway were you willing to give to them? And I think it's nice to see them ramping this up, because the general public that has, just not had that same love and passion and experience, but they just want the product to be cool. They may not have that same level of, oh, it's cool, like, thanks for finally getting back to me.
Right, I agree. It's again part of that same growing pains, the transition from niche market to mainstream, and it's a big hurdle. It's a big hump, big hurdle. You've got to satisfy a lot of different people in a lot of different ways that aren't going to have the patience for the bugs and frustrations that a lot of us did early on.
Right.
So my only comment on this is, let's start the Deadpool today. How long? Why didn't we move that drop down out? No? Oh, you guys think I'm kidding? No, I mean.
Wait. So what are you asking?
Honestly, this seems. You don't. If you're a rational company, you don't implement something like this without people in place that are actually going to do something. And their VP of engineering is probably going to get tired of hearing about somebody's broken windshield wiper in Abilene or wherever. You know what I mean? Like, because we know people are going to abuse it.
Yes. It's not sustainable.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's not sustainable without the infrastructure who aren't executives, or maybe they call them, you know what I mean? So it seems kind of, I like the thought. It seems like an empty gesture, though.
Well, yeah,
unfair?
I wonder if there's a filtering system built in behind the scenes that will help them execute this well. But to your point, if it is just going to be an empty gesture, if it starts filling up in this bucket that inevitably just makes people upset about, on both sides, both the executives and whoever was sold, you have to be able to respond to these things, and the owners that aren't getting an efficient response. Yeah, it could be a recipe for disaster. Yeah.
Unless the executive is really a second level customer support that maybe has a little more ability to truly escalate it if it looks like it's something actionable.
He's a customer support executive.
Yeah, not a C-level executive.
But that's okay, that's kind of okay too. Like, if that's how they're going to define executive, and if there's some genuine action taken, then good for Tesla.
Yeah.
Good for Tesla. But again, the idea that the VP of engineering is going to get all of these complaints and deal with this stuff while he or she is doing their job.
Noted Monterey talking about 10% gains.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, these wheel covers, they double your range.
Yep. Somewhere one of the other junior engineers went, like, you could just see him eating lunch and hearing that going, what?
He said what? He said it what? It has what?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Well, kids, that was fun, but it's time to say goodnight.
All right, I want to go. Let me go, because I'm going to do a mini story and my shoutouts.
Go ahead.
Do it. You go, Evan.
All right, I'm going to go. All right, let me see if I can share my screen here without screwing everything and the whole planet up. All right, sharing. All right, so I'm sharing the screen. So my shout out is to, I think, Miss Shuling Yang, who apparently used my referral code, which is right there. Oh, you can't see that part, can you?
No, you can't see
crap.
that.
That's helpful, Evan.
But and so I'm going to be the recipient of this fine child's electric Tesla, which I have no idea what I'm going to do with.
Yes. You sure that's not the Model Y?
But it's still very cool, and I greatly appreciate Ms. Yang. And I don't know how she got my code. I'm going to assume it was from this program, and she's a loyal listener. And the segue to one last story I'll just touch on briefly, because I think it's classic Elon Musk, is if you get more than 5 referral codes, you get a chance to drive Elon's new boring company boring machine that's in the tunnel.
That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy.
Is that beautiful or what? So I really need about 5 more people to use my referral code in my Tesla, because I want to drive that sucker.
And we will have live video of Evan driving a boring machine under the streets of LA.
Yeah, 9 GoPros and a smile on his face.
All right. I just want to see Evan drilling tunnels under his neighbor's house. You bastard. That's what I'd do. I'd be like, or cutting a shortcut to work, you know?
Yeah, this was just announced today, and I think that's That's just so classic Musk right there.
Classic.
That is some classic Musk.
Well, it could have been worse. You could have been strapped to the edge of the Falcon Heavy.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but don't give him any ideas. You know what I mean? The next week, Elon's going to be like,
yeah. Well, he did show the spacesuit that he's making for the Mars missions today. So maybe you get to be a crash test dummy in a spacesuit.
That's a prize?
Yeah, NASA's like, we sent up monkeys and dogs, and I was like, who are you sending up? They're like, Evan.
We're sending up Tesla referral people. Yes, that's what we're doing.
But notice the story to all those animals they sent up into space. Isn't how they got them back down safely? They just sent them up.
Yeah. Space monkey.
Yeah, think about that, kids. Hey, Matt, I bet you have some shout out.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, again, I appreciate the time to come on today, but definitely want to keep talking to people about ChargeWay. I think it's important that we really talk about, even beyond Tesla, how we help everybody who's wanting to look at an EV understand how they work better, because it's going to help Tesla, but it's going to help everybody get into an EV more easily. If you want to know more about me, my URL is Teske Design, TESKE design.com. That's what I do with, I guess, my day job. But everything else I do is related to making EVs, again, for everybody. So let's see how we can do it.
And is the link to your Charge project off your Teske website?
I've separated church and state there for the most part.
Okay.
So, yeah, ChargeWay is
ChargeWay. What it is?
Yeah, ChargeWay.net is the website for ChargeWay's information. So.
Very good.
More news coming. I'll be happy to come and chat with you guys again about more news on that, because everything is still moving. It's just it's a big conversation with a lot of people around the world. So
yeah, I bet.
Good things. Well, when you're rich and famous, come back on the show and.
Well, again, not why I did it, but we'll see.
Sure. No, of course not. You did it because it's a cool thing to do.
Oh, I got pissed of watching the fact that it was still confusing. That's why I did it.
People being pissed off about simple things has accomplished quite a bit in this world.
Yep.
And
That's
speaking
true.
of accomplished quite a bit, Mr. Coughlin.
No real shout-outs today. Just happy to be back and looking forward to another show next week. So that's it.
Awesome.
Oh, well, let me plug the show. Certainly, if you want to follow us, please join our Twitter feed at The Tesla Life, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel so you automatically get alerted every time the show starts up, like my phone rang as soon as the show started. And I'm sure you would like to know when the show is live as well. So please join us there. And finally, join us on Facebook at The Tesla Life #1, and we will see you online.
What more could you ask? What more, indeed, could you ask? I'm trying to get. There we go. It's the associated technical gear that's so tough here. I'm not used to the new studio setup and the time change. I have more excuses. Check in next week for that. Hey, my huge thanks to Matthew Teske for coming on, Mr. ChargeWay.net, Mr. Teske Design, and, of course, Mr. Stirrer Up of Model 3 fans everywhere.
I still have a reservation, everybody. You can't hit
Exactly. And, of course, Evan, thank you so much for coming on. And have you heard anything yet?
I have not gotten an offer to order yet, no. So
I got that news. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm good with that so far because I'm definitely not ready.
Evan's like, we're going to put this on the Visa card, right? We ordered 2 of these things. What the hell was I thinking? Was I drunk? And Mark told me that the FAQ tells him that he's not until late.
I don't even have 3 boxes. I just have late 2018. That's all mine says.
Wow.
Oh no!
Welcome to Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we get a little love for our friend Mark in Canada?
Just a little.
Id 2018. Give him something to hope for.
Something to hope for. I'd like to see the needle move, at least.
Yeah.
Give me 3 boxes. Just 3 boxes.
Nice. And as he said, facebook.com/the Tesla Life #1 at the Tesla Life on Twitter. Search the Tesla Life Show on YouTube and subscribe there. You can see our show. Tune in next week and find out what is happening in the Tesla Life.